I think this should be it, yeah. One's at the bottom I haven't had, but you already had those.
Yeah.
Three down there, they're not attached.
Vicky's gonna have to read the motions first. Because I don't have the document, unless you do.
I have the waivers.
Yeah.
I don't have a copy of the motion. Ready? Okay. All right, I'm gonna take this off. All right, good evening, everybody. So I've got some feedback. Like I'm in a stadium.
Muted.
It's good? Okay. All right, good evening, everyone. I'll call to order this meeting of the City of Manassas Park Planning Commission, Wednesday, October 14th. Meeting is in order. Quick roll call shows that all Planning Commission members are present at the meeting. Item 3 is an invocation, moment of silent pledge of allegiance. So if we could all rise for a moment of silence, and Commissioner Evans, if you could lead us in pledge of allegiance. Pledge of allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Item 4 is approval of agenda. We have an agenda before us. Is there a motion to approve that agenda?
So moved. Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries. We have an agenda for the evening. Item 5 is adoption of minutes from the June 3rd, 2020 meeting. It's a pleasure of the Planning Commission.
I move to adopt the minutes.
Motion to adopt.
Second.
And a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Item 6 is citizen time. Are there any citizens signed up to address the Planning Commission this evening? Okay, thank you. Item 7, new business, has several subsections. First one is a couple of introductions. First, I want to introduce new Planning Commissioner, Lester Finkel. Lester joins us from Connecticut with 4 or 5 years in the city, and maybe I'll give you just a minute or two if you want to introduce yourself to the Planning Commission and the public.
Sure. Thank you. Well, it's a pleasure to be here. Okay.
Great to
Pleasure
sneeze.
for that too. So I worked in the New Jersey Department of Transportation in the early 1990s, so I had state experience that way with acquiring right-of-way, valuing property, and things like that.
Pull the mic. Should I mute this?
No, if you mute it, then they're not going to be able to hear it.
Can I confirm someone can hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Dean. Can you hear us?
If you want to move that mic closer to you.
We can hear you, Dean. Can you hear us?
Is that better? Is that okay?
Yeah, that's better. Hang on one second, though. It sounds like, do we have an issue, Keith?
Chair Holmes, Dean Crovers. Can you confirm you can hear me?
Dean, yes, I can hear you. Sounds like you cannot hear us. Yeah, it sounds like Dean can't hear us. Does everybody stand by for just a minute? I can shoot Dean a text real quick.
You tried.
That's right.
We'll get back to you.
It is what it is.
Can we do a, okay. Calvin, can you hear me? Mike Scott, can you hear me? Let's try this.
none of us are looking for jobs as a sound technician. Maybe in our next life.
Regardless. We speak in Hey Dean, can you hear me now? Okay. Let's call back. What's the number?
866-899-4679.
Please enter your access code followed by the pound or hash sign.
349-711-829 #.
To enable audio controls, please enter your audio PIN followed by the pound or hash sign. If you do not have a PIN, just press pound or hash.
Okay. Dean, can you hear me? You gotta mute that one.
Yes, I can hear you now.
Okay. Give us 1 second. It's yours is muted. Is the TV going on?
You shouldn't be at all.
Yes. Okay, now do a test.
Quick test. Dean, can you hear us? Hello, checking. Can you hear us?
I can hear. This is Dean. I can hear you guys.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Can you do a test from there?
Hey Dean, do you hear me?
Yes, I can hear whoever that was.
Okay. All right, that was Keith. So I think we're back in action. I think there was a little bit of background noise. It sounds quiet now, but if everybody could go on mute unless you're speaking, please. All right, we'll resume. Sorry, Lester, new Planning Commissioner Lester Finkel. Back over to you, Lester, for a quick introduction.
Thank you. I appreciate it. So I've had the pleasure of working at the state level from the early 90s with the New Jersey Department of Transportation and right-of-way. I've worked for the federal government since 1996, Federal Highway Administration until 2015, and then I moved over to the Federal Motor Carrier Safety Administration. So I moved around the country with the Federal Highway Administration. I worked in Jeff City, Missouri for 6 months, 3 years in California, and then I moved to Connecticut. I was there for 11 and a half years from 1999 until early 2011. In Connecticut, I had the chance to volunteer for the Inland Wetlands Commission in the town of Vernon Rockville, about a 30,000 population town in Connecticut. And was on that commission for 18 months. And then I was on the Planning and Zoning Commission for 5.5 years. They had a little bit larger Planning Zoning Commission, 7 members with 2 alternates. So I was an alternate for 6 months, sitting member for a year, and then I acted as I was the chairperson for 4 of the years there in the 5.5. I resigned when I moved down to the DC area to take a promotion for the Federal Highway Administration. So it's a pleasure to be back. It's been 10 years since I had the chance to serve, and I really appreciate the chance to be back. And
great, thank you, welcome, and we appreciate your willingness to serve.
You're very welcome, thank you.
I believe we also have in the audience future Planning Commissioner Michael Beckett. Are you in the audience?
Hi, this is Michael Beckett. I'm actually not in the audience, but I am watching remotely.
Okay, great, Michael. Just wanted to acknowledge you and understand you're on deck. We expect an opening at the end of the year when the term expires, and we expect to have you then. So future welcome to you, and we'll give you an opportunity to introduce yourself then. So thank you for joining us tonight.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate it.
Okay, item 7B, public hearing, zoning ordinance text amendment ZOTA number 20-09 fences. I'll go ahead and declare the public hearing open and turn it over to the planner, Michelle.
Thank you, Chairman Pope, and members of the Planning Commission. Good evening. This is going to be a short and quick zoning ordinance text amendment, but although short, it is necessary, especially for the two upcoming plans that we're going to be discussing this evening. What it has to do with is an increase in fence height. The maximum fence height within the city was 6 feet. While that's acceptable for residential, for industrial and commercial uses, that is pretty low. So we have tried to increase this amendment does try to increase the fence heights for various districts. So in the I-1, we're going to do it up to 10 feet. And then in the PUD, the planned unit development and the mixed use development districts, it's up to 8 feet when shown on a development plan or site plan. That allows some flexibility, and it can be looked at holistically when those plans go through the process. And finally, we did want a little more flexibility when residential abuts either commercial or industrial. So we left the flexibility with the zoning administrator to establish a fence height that's reasonable, that would allow a lot of buffering and enhancement for a taller fence height, but maybe up to 12 feet or so, 16 feet possibly. So that's why we allow the flexibility for that.
Can I pause you 1 second, Michelle? Hi, whoever's dialed in, can you just please make sure that your phones are on mute? Thanks. Sorry, go ahead.
And I just wanted to highlight a few things. Our fence ordinance currently exempts public uses. That still remains, especially for either a basketball court or a baseball diamond. Those fences need to be higher. So they're exempt, as well as for our utility yards and our public works yards. And the sight distance triangle at the corner, when you want to be able to see at an intersection, those standards remain the same. And also that the residential lot fence heights do not change, and it's continuing to be 4 in the front and up to 6 in the rear and side. So that's essentially the amendment, and again, it's to assist with our industrial and commercial properties. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, is there anybody from the public signed up for the public hearing? I'm guessing no. Planning commissioners, any questions on the zoning text amendment for fences? I just had one quick question. At the boundaries between the uses, what wins? Does first one win? So if the industrial decides to build a 10-foot or the mixed use decides to build an 8-foot, is it kind of a matter of whichever property owner moves first for?
Or it's with the proposed request.
Okay.
So, I mean, anything existing is fine, but usually it would be associated with a site plan.
Okay.
Or rezoning or conditional use permit. So it would be applicable to that site. And so, I mean, unfortunately, as odd as it can be, there can be back-to-back fences.
I was going to ask that next. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
But we can, and that's determined, would be on a case-by-case basis, and we can look at the application and determine if that's appropriate to have side-by-side barriers.
Okay. Okay.
I
Anything?
did want to add 2 things. We did make some minor changes after the hearing was advertised. They're really editorial in nature, but I do want to highlight we made a few changes. And also, staff is recommending approval of this amendment.
Okay. Well, are we intend to take action tonight? So close the public hearing and take action on it tonight?
If you feel comfortable, I think this is a pretty quick and easy amendment.
Okay.
There is one action item that we want to kind of get this moving, because we do have the waste management facility who wants that equipment. technically the site plan can't be approved until, that this amendment is approved. And
Okay.
I want to schedule this for the November 4th governing body here.
Okay,
So I would prefer if you could make a recommendation.
okay. So let's go in order, I guess. First, we need to close the public hearing. So I'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
A motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? Public hearing's closed. I'll just sort of informally poll the planning commission. Any objection to moving forward tonight? This seems fairly non-controversial. It doesn't seem to be a lot of folks out to discuss the topic, and I know we normally defer action for the next one, but doesn't seem like a reason to defer unless anybody objects. Okay, so with that, and I apologize, I don't have my language with me for the recommended motion, so I don't know if was that one recommended in the package?
It's for the planning commission to recommend to the governing body approval of zoning
Text amendment,
Zoda number 2009.
Okay, okay, so a motion to that effect. Is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries. Okay. Up next, public meeting, site plan SP number 20-05, Dominion Recycling and Transfer.
Okay, this is a site plan for the Dominion Recycling and Transfer. Go through some of these real quickly. Here's the location of the site. It's at the northeast corner of the Industry Drive cul-de-sac. That's just a Google map for reference. Probably you see the railroad on the east, and actually Prince William is to the northeast, the property above. This actually provides a better visual for the site. Again, the railroad's to the east, and after the railroad, it is our, it's called Blooms Park now, the former golf course, and the trees up to the northeast again are Prince William, but all the other developed properties are within the city and they are zoned industrial district I1. Just for reference, there was a conditional use permit approved for this site back in March of this year. This was a plan that was part of that conditional use permit, and there are several associated conditions. As you can see, there's a proposed waste transfer facility building, and then they're going to convert the existing building into a recycling center. And this is what's proposed on the site plan. The red squiggles are really just some minor changes that they made with this submission. But it essentially is similar to the site conditional use permit plan, which is good. It does meet all the zoning requirements for the setbacks, along with building coverage, which is not to exceed 70%. They're at less than 20%. The landscape area, there is a minimum 20%, but they did receive a waiver as part of that in conjunction with that conditional use permit up to 14%. They are proposing 14.1% of landscape area. They do meet the parking requirements, showing or providing 18 spaces with a requirement of 17 and 1 loading space. I just wanted to point out there are some retaining walls that they're showing along the east property boundary that abuts the railroad right of way. And then there also is a new one along the southwest or southern property boundary, a smaller one that was added. That wasn't really part or added or as part of anticipated as part of the conditional use permit plan, but it's shown now on the site plan. Here's just the landscaping plan to show that they did modify it a little bit. There are some open areas at the corners of the property to provide a little more open space, especially in the southern corner there. And so they took out a few of the not required parking spaces, but vehicle spaces that they're showing in conjunction with their existing business. And you can see that the landscaping to the northeast that abuts the residential in Prince William County has a substantial buffer. And then a fence, a solid metal fence will be going there, and the proposed height is 8 feet. And then just, this is the fence that they're proposing. I know that doesn't show up well on the screen, but what that's saying is that it's going to be 8 feet tall. And that this area in red shows more detail on there with the dimensions.
Is it going to be the same material as in that black box there?
I believe so, because that is the information or a cut sheet from the manufacturer, but I would defer to the applicant for those specific questions. And are you asking about the color as well? Or
Yeah, the specifics.
so I'll have the applicant come up and they can answer that question.
Thank you.
And I just wanted to remind everybody that there were some conditions associated with this project and use. I'm just going to put them up on the screen for our viewing audience and not really go through them, but they are some good conditions associated with the use for odor and trash maintenance and control. And then essentially they will be obtaining all the required permits necessary to operate the site. And there will be some odor control as part of that type of misting system. So it does meet all the engineering requirements. Our consultant engineers recommended to me that they met all the minimum standards for engineering, including stormwater and water and sewer. So we are recommending to the Planning Commission that recommend to the zoning administrator approval of this application. And I'd be happy to answer any questions, and if not, we can have the applicant come up and then address the next question.
Okay, any other questions or? Okay, we'll hear from the applicant.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks
evening.
for having us here.
Good
Welcome,
evening.
sir.
Thank
We
you.
met out in the parking lot.
Appreciate that.
And again, thank you guys for taking the time to consider this, and we're really looking forward to making this something we can be proud of, and you guys as well, as I've said before. I think the one issue I want to address in reference to the fence, I speak to Dave, the neighbor that owns the residential property, quite often, especially recently as we've been progressing through the progress. And what I told him is what we've submitted in the color of the fence, and that metal fence, it's I think it's metal clad in plastic, DPE, or one of the heavier duty plastics. But I've spoken with him and I said, I'm certainly willing, because he's the only one that will see that fence other than us, and maybe not even him because of so much landscaping that we're putting in there. But I did reach out to him and told him if he wanted me to build like a board-on-board oak fence that stains up, that looks really nice, whatever it is to keep him happy and we can stay in alignment with what you guys want us to do, I'm willing to do that. That's probably the most expensive fence other than like wrought iron, which would serve no purpose here. But I know we have to please you guys, but I really want to please Dave, the neighbor, to make sure that he knows, you know, we're doing the right thing for him as well. But any other questions?
So it's my question is mostly pertaining to the railroad, the viewing from the railroad. So is it going to look like that fence there, that picture, or is it different?
No, if I'm not mistaken, the fence that's on the railroad, isn't it a chain link fence? Because we have a retaining wall, and with the retaining wall, which I've recently been educated on, when we put that fence there, every 8 feet, they have to put pre-posted, or they put a post in there with concrete around it because of the retaining wall itself. And I've been told it's much safer with the height of the retaining wall to stick with the chain link fence. But we are gonna put a high-grade chain link fence with either slats in it or a decorative that makes it either all green or all black. I prefer green. I think it looks a little bit nicer. I'm open to the color, whatever works for you guys, but that's what we're gonna do.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other questions for the applicant? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
So with that, I think the recommendation was to refer back to the zoning administrator for final site plan approval.
Correct, and I just wanted to add a few comments about the retaining wall. I believe that's gonna be fairly high. It's about 15 to 17 feet, is that not correct? And remember, they are also, in one of their conditions, gonna put a sign of some sort or provide the city with money to say, welcome to Manassas Park.
Welcome sign, yeah.
Okay, so that still is in.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay, with that, is there a motion?
I'll make a motion, recommend that the planning commission refer site plan 2005 to the zoning administrator for final approval.
Motion, is there a second?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any other discussion? Okay, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Thank you. On to item 7D, amendment to Planning Commission bylaws, meeting date.
So I don't have a presentation for this one, it's fairly simple. The bylaws currently say that the planning commission meets the first Monday of the month. We have abandoned that since last year, meeting on Wednesdays. And just in polling the staff, as well as being the in-between meeting between the two governing body meetings, we are recommending that the planning commission need to be moved to Wednesday, the second Wednesday of every month. That's what's shown in the amended bylaws, and if everybody's agreeable to that date, we are recommending approval just to ensure that we have the proper date in the bylaws that we're using for the meetings.
Okay, any objections to that? No. Okay, so I think we probably needed a motion to amend the Planning Commission bylaws to reflect the second Wednesday of each month will be the meeting date.
Yes.
Okay, is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, item 8 is unfinished business. The first sub-item is 8A, decision on rezoning RZ number 20-06, Village at Manassas Park.
Okay, since the public hearing last week, the applicant did come back and make some changes. Not to the plan, but to the property. Thank you for that. So just real quick, this is one page of the master plan showing the layout of the site. And we familiarize everybody with the application. But here are the proposed changes. One of the concerns was the rear facade of building B. That is included in the new property that they will provide additional architectural treatments to that building. I do have a slide next that kind of shows that as part of the design guidelines. They are also offering a fence along the northern property boundary, which is the industrial property just up the street here along Manassas Drive, so just that portion of the development. There will also be landscaping or hardscaping at the first visible unit when you're heading down Manassas Drive towards the railroad tracks. there was some concern about having that be a nice visual for the development, and so they did identify that as measures that they will include for this plan. And the noise study was also, that proffer was amended to clearly indicate that the measures identified in the study will be provided for those adjacent units, which I thought was a good clarifying statement for that proffer. It really indicates what they're going to do instead of just saying they're going to do a noise study. It was called a concern of the fire marshal about it either having sprinklers in the attic or 26-foot wide travel ways. It's just saying all alleyways will be a minimum of 26 feet wide. Those were the ones that were narrower. Every other road is greater than that. So that is how the proffer reads. And then finally, they are going to have an entryway sign for the downtown somewhere either in the median of Manassas Drive before, I guess that would be Park Center Court intersection and Market Street, or they're gonna have it in the right-of-way next to Building B, which is gonna be the entertainment. I believe I've covered all the changes that they've made. Here is a rendering of the building. The bottom one is the back of Building B. I believe those windows will be spandrel glass or faux windows, but it certainly does provide a better appearance when you can see that from the street. I think they've done a good job of addressing that concern. And the bottom map is just showing where those elevations are coming from. It's just showing the front of Building B and the rear of Building B. Staff is recommending that the Planning Commission recommend to the governing body approval of the application as they stated in the public hearing. The applicant is here if you have any additional questions. But at this point, I'm going to conclude my presentation, and if you have any questions of me, I'd be happy to answer them.
Okay, Planning Commission, any questions?
For the applicant, I have a couple of questions.
Okay, any questions for
I don't have any.
Ms. Berry? Okay, we'll go ahead and move to questions for the applicant.
Okay.
Commissioner Finkel?
Sure.
Thank you. Commissioner Finkel, go ahead.
Good evening.
Mr. Finkel, well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. A couple of questions I see under the environmental section of the write-up here. The jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps of Engineers and the Virginia DEQ. Is there any time frame that you're looking at for how that's going to work? It looks like needs to find out first if it's under their jurisdiction first, or.
Say it again. I can't hear you for your mask question.
Okay. It says there the applicant will need to request a jurisdictional determination from the Army Corps and Virginia Department of Environmental Quality. Is there a certain timeline that you have in mind for that? I know it takes some time to do that.
It does. Construction on this project is slated to begin, spring? February timeframe. And the process, we have our environmental engineer is already working on that environmental delineation. So I would expect we're going to get the jurisdictional determination probably early in the year.
Okay.
So it's going to be coming soon.
Okay.
It's been submitted.
It's been submitted. Great.
Information that.
Good.
Basically.
Very good. Okay. I know that takes some time, so I'm glad it's on the
We're very familiar
side.
with it, and
Good.
we know how it takes.
Good. Great. And then I noticed under the school section, so that might not be for you then. Sorry. The disagreement between city staff and school staff on the impact of and the comprehensive agreement. It says that there's the proffering of $2,000 per unit.
That's correct.
Okay.
And Mr. Falco knows all about that.
Okay. Thank you. All right.
He and I and Mr. Crowhurst and others negotiated the conference agreement, so I understand that.
Good.
Yeah, if your question is referring to kind of why there's a disparity, the city, we did a lot of research, my staff did a lot of research in preparation of the town halls that we held back in December of 2019 about the school impact. And we relied heavily on the Prince William County. They did a comprehensive CIP analysis of what every single residential unit and by type of unit was actually adding in school-age children.
Okay.
The complexity there was they had first the 2-over-2 stacked towns listed with townhomes,
So much.
and then they moved them down to apartments.
Okay.
When they moved them down to apartments, the school-age kids for apartments actually went down, and the townhomes skyrocketed.
Okay.
Right, so the percentage that we came up with was based off that Prince William County, because that's a much broader market dynamic there, right, of what's going on. We weren't sure where the schools got their data, but their data was even higher than what the single-family units were generating in Prince William County, which sounds counterintuitive.
Okay.
So we, again, and during the town halls, I also presented some data about kind of national trends. My generation of millennials just didn't have as many kids, right, as previous generations. This is a national trend now about school, the number of children, or the number of children that my generation is having is a lot less than previous generations. We don't know unless Generation Z picks up slack.
Okay.
There might be a national issue with kind of the drop in school-age populations overall. So we've seen over the last 4 years, the city added roughly 400 apartment units, and enrollments actually dropped by 94. So it's not always true that adding residential units leads to increased enrollment.
Good.
Evidence says what happened here over the last 4 years.
Right.
It's impacted by much larger dynamics that we have little control over. And again, we wanted to rely on that comprehensive Prince William CIP study that my system did.
Has the schools accepted that? I know here it said they were not, but
Yeah, I can't speak for them.
Okay. Just was curious if they had.
Again, we relied on that data and kind of what we're seeing, and there is a concern if you lose a lot of students. Our state funding is the biggest driver of state funding besides income levels is number of students and total population as well. So total population helps us get more funding, as the student population. Income levels, as they go up, we get less, right? But as student enrollment goes down, you also get less. So that's another consideration. When I presented the 10-year CIP, the no downtown model and the downtown model, with the downtown model, I provide significant funding increases for the school with the assumption that as our economic picture improves, the state's probably going to decrease their funding amount. So we're cognizant of that possibility. So it's something we got to keep track of. But if both enrollment goes down and income levels go up, you're going to have an even larger impact on the loss of state money. And we are heavily funded by the state in comparison to our neighbors, Falls Church and others, who receive a very small amount of funding from the state as proportion to their total budget. Our city is heavily funded, our schools, by the state in proportion to the city budget as well.
Okay, good. And then just one other, for the city side, I'm sorry. Go ahead, please, go ahead. Sure.
Mr. Franklin, that is to say, the thing that most disturbed me about that, Chairman Pope, was his reference to his generation and our generation. Because I know we're not in the same generation.
I'm sorry. That's it. With respect to the driving school,
Yes.
the city intends to acquire that. Has there been, I don't know if I missed that at the last week at the city council meeting, but has the city approached the property owner?
It has on a number of occasions.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll probably let Dean, if you're on, if you can take that one, that was a little bit more sensitive. I'd rather have you answer that one.
City Attorney Crowhurst, are you
Ask caller number 4. You can just mute, please, because I keep hearing a lot of background from you. So I don't know who that is. But as far as the school, we're in the process right now of trying to acquire Lot 1A. It's not part of this rezoning, and it'll probably be rezoned to a public facility at some point in the future. It's going to be instrumental to the city hall development, but it's not, as far as this overall development here, we're getting funding to acquire it as part of the public parking and the public building, and then also the road, but it's not part of this rezoning.
Okay, and then it does mention about the Virginia DOT funds. Are we fairly comfortable with that? I know with lack of travel during COVID, the gas tax hasn't been coming in as much as it has, so I guess it'll just be wait and see when the time comes.
Probably a question
Yes,
for.
so your reference is in terms of funding for.
The purchase of the property itself, I noticed
Oh,
that there
yeah.
was,
We won't be using Department of Transportation funding.
Fund for that. Okay, fine.
We're gonna apply for Department of Transportation funding for, I believe it's called Road D.
Road D, okay.
No, B.
C.
C or B?
I think it's C.
B and C, right? We're gonna try for both of them and then see what we can get.
Yes.
We could try, I think the timeline is, I don't think we can meet the timeline for B. If B is the one that directly feeds in the VRE, yeah, I think we missed the timeline to get Department. Now, it doesn't mean we can't apply for other federal grants.
Sure.
And that we have a grants company that's, I'm gonna present on their findings this coming Tuesday, the governing body. And there are other federal opportunities that we're gonna apply for this entire project. But you're right, in terms of this year, there's certainly concerns about Department of Transportation funding related to COVID-19, but it doesn't mean we're not, that there aren't other opportunities. And by the time we get to Road C, which is part of phase 2, the funding should be back for those.
Okay, good. Thank you. Thank you
So
very much.
Laszlo, but we're also going to be looking for maintenance funding, and so that's why we're trying to get the waiver for both B and C.
Yeah, that's true. That's more of an annual operating, which we find out kind of every year what the impact is in terms of how much we get for maintenance. But
Okay.
yeah, that's accurate. So we are going to try to get these roads within the VDOT maintenance program, so
Gotcha.
we get annual funding per lane mile. But
Okay.
the addition won't be significant for these roads.
Okay, thank you.
It also should be noted that as you know, the General Assembly is in session right now, forever.
They haven't gotten out of it.
And one of the reasons they went into session was to worry about budget problems.
Right.
It just turned out that that's not been what they've been focused on, because the Commonwealth has just not lost as much money as it thought it was going to lose.
Okay.
So revenues have actually been stronger than anticipated. Okay. So the various departments of the government are not taking the hit they anticipated. That would include me.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Other questions? Okay.
Chairman.
Thank you. So no other questions. It looks like the recommended motion is to recommend to the governing body approval of rezoning RZ number 20-06 Village at Manassas Park as revised October 7th, 2020, with additional advisement to the Planning Commission recommend, okay, that's the waiver, so I think we'll hold off on those other ones. So let's just start with this one for now. So recommended is approval of rezoning RZ number 20-06 Village at Manassas Park as revised October 7th, 2020. Is there a motion to that effect?
So moved.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, on to item 8B, decision on zoning waivers, WAI number 20-06A through L. Is there a discussion or a presentation on these? No? Okay, so let me just check. City Attorney Crowhurst, just wanted to consult with you. Can we take these in bulk, or do you have a different recommendation for how to handle these?
You can vote on them in bulk, unless you're going to vote obviously on one of them, you're going to vote against it. But if you're going to vote the same for all of them, and there's no individual commissioner that wants to vote on one individually, then yeah, you can take them in bulk. But I would read them down just so everybody knows what you're voting on.
Okay, and by read them down, waiver number and summary?
Is what I meant, just the list of the waivers.
And the summary, you're saying. So the number and what it is briefly?
Exactly, yeah. You don't have to go into full
Yeah.
detail because they can get that information
Yeah.
with the available
Okay,
documents.
all right, I'll bear that cross. So the list of 19 waivers for consideration by the Planning Commission. These are all waiver numbers, WAI number 20-06, and then lettered. So the first one is A. In a summary, the residential component of any development cannot comprise more than 75% of development's total floor area. And I'll change to just review the proposed mod. So the modification, the waiver allows an increase in percentage of residential area to 82% of the total proposed floor area. Waiver B allows a reduction of the minimum building height to 16 feet, which the traditional requirement is 40 feet, so it's a waiver for the height. Item C modifies the parking. The requirement is parking for a specific use must be located within 400 feet of the premises. The proposed waivers modifies this requirement as shown on the future site plan. Waiver D, the requirement is a landscaped strip 5 feet in width, curbing or approved barriers continuous except for entrance and exits shall be provided along the boundaries of any off-street parking area that abuts or adjoins a public street, alley, or public right-of-way in order to control entrance and exit of vehicles or pedestrians. The proposed waiver is to modify the requirement as shown on the future site plan. Waiver E, parking bays shall not be constructed to a length of more than 90 feet without constructing a landscape island of at least 9 feet in width and 18 feet in length. Waiver is to modify it per the future site plan. Waiver F, 35-foot buffer required between a residential and commercial building. Waiver modifies this as shown in the site plan. Waiver G, 40-foot buffer required for all commercial buildings greater than 20 feet in height. Also, the waiver modifies this requirement as shown in the site plan. Waiver H, 100-foot buffer required from the railroad right-of-way to residential. The waiver allows a reduction of this requirement to 25 feet from 100. Waiver I, the requirement is there shall be landscaped open space within the perimeter of the parking areas in the minimum amount of 8 square feet for each parking space, which shall be located so that no parking space is more than 125 feet from a portion of the landscaped open space as required. The proposed waiver is to modify this as shown in the site plan. Waiver J, the requirement is peripheral landscaping shall be required along any side of parking lot that abuts adjoining property. This is not a right-of-way such that a landscaped strip 10 feet in width shall be located between the parking area and the abutting property lines, except where a driveway or other openings may be required. The waiver modification is to modify the requirement as shown in the future site plan. Waiver K, the requirement is the barriers to include a fence or wall and vegetation are required to separate incompatible uses. The modification or waiver is to modify the requirements as shown in the site plan. And waiver L, the requirement is that the required bicycle parking for commercial use, office use, and public facilities is 1 space per 1,200 gross square feet and 1 space per 4 multiple family dwelling units. The waiver modifies to bicycle parking to 1 per 5,000 gross square feet for office and commercial uses and 1 space per 25 units for multiple family dwellings. And the discussion and dialogue for the waivers is well chronicled and discussed in the past meetings. So those are the waivers. So with that, the recommended motion is that the Planning Commission recommend to the governing body approval of waivers WAI number 20-06 A through L. Is there a motion to that effect? Motion?
Second.
Motion and a second. Any additional discussion on the waivers? If not, all those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, I assume we can similarly move straight to item 8C, decision on public facilities manual waivers, PFW number 20-06 A through G. And similarly, I will read those. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 of those, A through G. PFW number 20-06 A, the requirement is that the required private street width is 30 feet. The waiver reduces the private street requirement to 24 feet. PFW waiver B, required private street width is 30 feet, reduces the private alleyway width to a minimum of 20 feet. Waiver C, on-street parking is not permitted on a private street. The waiver allows on-street parking on a private street. Waiver D, distinct cul-de-sacs must be constructed where streets end and parking bays begin. The waiver eliminates the cul-de-sac requirement. Font's getting smaller, bear with me for 1 minute. Waiver E, requirement is a maximum of 700 vehicles per day for private streets. The waiver waives the 700 vehicles per day limit. Waiver F, sidewalks required on both sides of the street. The waiver modifies the sidewalk requirement as shown on the site plan. And waiver G, the requirement is no residential frontage is permitted on private streets. The waiver allows residential frontage on private streets. So, any discussions about the public facilities manual waivers?
I have a question. It's reducing the waiver. It said the streets can go down to 24 and 20 feet. Since we're doing 26 feet, can we just change it to 26?
Mr. Chairman, the proffer would override those. It doesn't matter that you go ahead and approve the waivers as they are, the proffer's trump. They'll be 26 feet.
But is this setting like a precedent for future development waivers?
The fact that the waivers say they are, as they are, really won't set a precedent for anything because the proffer will trump. And the fire marshal's position is 26 feet for the sprinklers in the attics, and so we're willing to live with that.
Do we need the waiver?
Yeah, I think you're asking, does it set a precedent for future requests that we might not want to entertain, other
Right,
opportunities?
And I wouldn't want to set that precedent.
If you don't need it for this, then probably better just to.
For folks at home, there's just a small caucus.
Cool.
I don't think we can, but you might work off for other.
If we don't need it for this development.
Yeah, I don't. if
We don't,
need it, then
we've
I-
got,
we can
we,
eliminate
for the
that
reasons we've
one.
just said, we really don't need it for this
Right.
development because we've already committed to 26.
Sure. So can we,
Now we're asking whether
So-
Mickey needs it for some other reason, but I don't think so, no.
okay.
So you can do away with the ones involving 20
A and
or
B.
24 feet.
Yeah, A and B.
We don't really
Let
need those.
let me just, if it's okay, let me just check. City Attorney Crowhurst, did you hear that discussion? Do you have any comments if we move forward without A or B relative to the project or any future precedent?
Well, the only thing I have, I mean, I understand the point that, it's in the proffers in 26, but technically you need a waiver from that requirement. So I do appreciate Commissioner Mensing's point that, but I think that the roads, aren't the roads though going to be 24 and the alleyways are 26, or are they committing to 26 for each?
26 all.
26 for alleyways and 26 for roadways?
Everything else is larger than 26.
26 or larger for all roads and alleyways in the project.
But I take his
Why
point.
don't waivers and just get rid of
Technically, a
them,
waiver is
and
separate
just
from a
make them,
proffer.
you can reduce the private roads to 26. And then that would support the proffer as well.
I'm sorry, Mr. Foote, what was your comment there?
It's up to Dean.
Well, so I understand your point there. So you can go ahead and waive it down to 24, but then proffer up to 26. But I don't think you can go ahead and proffer to 26 without a waiver.
There you go.
Because you have to have a waiver requirement per our code. You have to have a waiver to change that width.
Waiver to 26.
So I think you could leave it
So-
at the 20 and 24 for the waiver portion of it. But then proffer is going to be at least 26 feet, which you've already done.
Can I
If that makes any sense.
Can I make the recommendation? Can we eliminate one item because they're kind of the same, but they're making a distinction between alleyways and roads, and just change it so that the waiver is to reduce the private street width to 26 feet?
Yeah, I mean, I think that would be the advisable thing to do.
Is that acceptable?
26 is acceptable for me,
Yes.
yes.
Okay, so then I think the alleyway distinction seems to be a little arbitrary now.
Right.
Let me try to make
Lead to 06B.
B, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. And then 20,
Say 26 feet.
26, yeah. So then I think the recommended motion, I'll try to form it and then request that somebody make this for a motion. I think that the recommendation becomes that the Planning Commission recommend to the governing body approval of Public Facilities Manual waivers PFW number 20-06A modified such that the waiver is 26 feet instead of 24 feet, and then also recommend approval of waivers 20-06C, D, E, F, and G. Waiver B is stricken from the discussion.
So moved.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to that effect. Okay. Phew. Is there any other discussion? Okay, with that, I'll call a question. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Abstentions? That motion carries unanimously. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Dean, for the guidance. Okay, we're on to agenda item 9, report of special committees.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Foote, thank you. Anything? Okay, showing none today. All right, so we will move on from item 9 to number 10, informational update from community development staff. Sorry, I was pausing. That's what I was thinking we were on there. So any updates today, Joe?
The only thing I have to report is that per code, the CIP requests are supposed to go out in September. They did that, and they're supposed to be returned to me the first day in November, first work day in November. So that process has begun. And we'll be seeing that in the spring, March time.
And what was that for?
The capital improvement program, It's the annual program. It is by code that we have to solicit to all the departments requests for capital projects. And so that was done in September, and as per code, they're supposed to provide that to me by the first day of November, the first day of the month of November. So that process, again, is underway.
It's their window to identify their needs lists and wish lists, yeah.
And that's really it. We are just busy, but we do have a lot of site plans. There's still a lot in process. I don't anticipate any being ready, certainly by next month, perhaps December, although there's still a lot of outstanding issues on several of them. So
Okay.
when they're ready, I'll be bringing it forward.
Okay, so it sounds like notionally plan for a regular meeting in November and possibly waive that off if we don't get anything. Okay. All right, thank you. We're down to item 11. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn unless there's any other.
So moved.
Motion and a second. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? We stand adjourned. All right, thanks everybody. Thanks everybody participating remotely.
Yeah.